Hey everybody, welcome back to day 2 of the Taisteal Tote Sewalong. Today we are completing the entire exterior of the bag. As you will find out, today is not without a snafu. And basically the short of it is that, shocker, my phone stopped recording and I lost one of the videos. So my bag has 2 slip pockets because I wasn't able, the first video for the slip pocket was lost, so I had to create the second to show you how to do that. If you want 2 slip pockets, then you could be like me and have 2 slip pockets. If you only want one, then just make one. Follow along in the video. I tell you about it as it's happening. But yeah, other than that, it comes together pretty quickly and seamlessly. And yeah, I hope that you have fun. And we're starting off video 2 with a bang because already my phone just stopped recording and I didn't realize it until after I got done completing the handles. So I'm just going to run you back through what I did. Unfortunately, I already taped everything, but essentially, I can just kind of peel it. I'll just peel a little section off so you can see. So what I did is on the wrong side of both of my shoulder straps, I drew a line right down the center. I don't know if you can see that silver line there, but then so I just did that all the way down. And then I went back and I folded my straps in toward that silver line, but I was sure to leave a gap here. And I left that gap because when we fold to create the rolled handle, having that amount of space right there just really allows for the fold to be nice and even. These edges here aren't pushing up against each other. They're not scrunching, so it's not causing any shifting of anything. And so leave that gap whenever you're folding. And the next thing, what I did is there are 2 measurements in the pattern, and you're going to make those marks on both of your straps from both short edges. So make the first mark and then the second mark, and then you're going to flip it and do the same marks on this side. And you can tell I did mine from the right side, and that's so that when I'm sewing, I can see my marks here. But if your marking pen doesn't erase easily, then I would suggest doing it from the back side and just, being aware of where that mark is, or use chalk, use something that line is not going to be visible after we're done using it. And then after you make those 2 marks, you're just going to put some clips and fold your long edges in toward each other to encase this opening in here. And you clip from the second drawn line. So here are my 2 lines, 1 and 2. So from the second drawn line, you clip all the way to the second drawn line that's on this end. And then you'll repeat that for the other strap. So I'm really sorry that the video deleted or didn't record, whatever. But hopefully that works. And well, it should. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So before we move to the machine to stitch down this entire length, I'm also going to take my crossbody strap and I'm gonna stitch my 2 pieces together and then butterfly this seam open. And then we will move on to step 4, which is attaching our handles to our interior or exterior top. One more thing that I forgot to point out. So in the pattern, I gave you the option of after you fold your 2 long raw edges in toward the center, you can do a double stitch line right down the center of the front side. And what that'll do is after you fold your handle, it will be stitched on this folded edge as well as this one. That's purely for looks. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me either way, but if you want to have stitch lines on this side as well as this side instead of just one side, then you're going to want to stitch down the center only before you fold and encase your raw edges. Hope that wasn't too rambly. Okay, but in that interim, these dried, so I'm going to go ahead and add another coat if I can find my thingy, there it is. Add one more coat of base before we move to the machine. I try to do this whenever I'm sewing anything that has connectors or anything that needs to be edge coated. I try to get those pieces out of the way first, so that way I can just edge coat as I'm sewing the actual bag. And then you don't have to wait at the end for the edge coat to dry. Nothing like getting all the way to the finish line and having to wait because one of the pieces that you need to finish is drying. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go to the machine and we'll stitch our handles in our strap. So I'm gonna start with my crossbody strap. I'm just sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I'm gonna butterfly this seam open. And stitch down both sides. So now this is ready to go back over to the folding side of my table, and then, yeah, we'll deal with that later. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch down this folded edge here using a scant 1/8 seam allowance, and I'm going to start my stitches at that second marked line, so that, not the first one, but the second one. And I'm going to be sure to backstitch really well, because this is going to be a high stress point on this strap. All right, now I'm just going to cruise all the way to the end. Skipped a stitch there. Now I'm going to stop stitching at the second line on this edge as well and back stitch again. Trim any threads that you might have. And that's what it should look like. And so had you stitched down both, or down the middle seam here before stitching this line, you would also have a stitch line on this side of the strap. And so, like I said, it doesn't really bother me at all that there isn't one, but if you want to, you can. Toss that back over there, and then we're gonna stitch this other strap. All right, strap number 2 done. And so this part will get stitched down onto the exterior top here in this next step. Alrighty, so we have the completed straps, and what we're gonna do is on the wrong side, I'm just gonna add a piece of double stick tape right down the center seam here, about a 1/2 inch up from the short edge. And I'm not going to go past my marked line here, because that is where we're gonna sew up to when we're attaching the strap to the exterior top. So on all 4 sides, I'm just going to add the tape. And this is just to help us hold it in place when we put it onto the exterior top. You can use glue here if that's what you have, but it definitely makes things a bit easier so that they don't get all wiggly on you. And so the placement lines or placement measurements are in the pattern, and just be sure that you're putting it on the placement where it says for the wide Taisteal. So I'm going to get one of my exterior tops here, and I'm just going to lay it out on the table. And then I'm going to count over the amount in the pattern. And I'm going to overhang it by 1/2 inch. And to make sure that it's straight all the way up, it helps if you just take a ruler and then you can align your strap edge to the ruler edge. And same on this other side. And now I like my folded, the two long edges that were folded in toward each other to be on what will be the inside. So the one folded edge will be toward the outside of the bag. So that's what it should look like. So I'm going to mirror that on the other exterior. And same on this side. Okay, so these are both ready for sewing. But while I'm over here, I'm gonna finish prepping my crossbody strap. And so the way that I'm gonna do that is just mark a line halfway. So since it's 4 inches wide, I'm gonna make a line at 2 inches down the entire length. And then we're gonna fold both long raw edges in toward the center and fold it. Basically what we did for the rolled edge, but this time we're not going to make it rolled. It's just going to be a flat seam the whole way. Put something heavy there. So now I'm just going to take my double stick tape and go all the way down about 1/8 inch from that marked line, just like I did on the handles. Oh no. Just unrolled a bunch of tape. This doesn't have to be perfectly straight, so you don't have to be super precious with it. You just want to make sure that your tape is on either side of that marked line. And then just like before, we're going to peel and fold, leaving just a tiny gap for the next folding step. Oh. The total width of this is going to be 1 inch after we're done sewing. And that way we'll have a 1 inch crossbody strap that will attach to our strap anchors. That will be optional for the customer to have. If they don't want to carry it crossbody, they can just use the shoulder straps. All right, so just like before, now we're going to take it and fold our long edges in and clip. So I was cruising right along and recording all the steps in the pattern, and I realized that when I was recording the step on how to attach or how to create the exterior slip pocket, that video didn't video. Story of my life. This camera situation, I've got to figure out something better. But so yeah, I had gotten all the way through. I attached the exterior pocket and I was coming back over here to show you how to open it up when I realized that that video was missing. So I am going to be adding a second slip pocket on the opposite exterior panel. And this bag, when it's completed, will have 2 slip pockets. I will just walk you through how to do the second exterior panel without the other slip pocket verbally. So I apologize about that for any confusion. But yeah, so if you want to have 2 exterior slip pockets, then do this next step on both panels. Otherwise, just make it how it's written. I could cry that I did that, but I guess it's good for the customer. Now they're gonna have 3 pockets instead of 2. So just going back to the video prior, I had just shown you how to fold the crossbody strap. And before we go back to the machine to sew that, we need to create the sandwich to make the exterior pocket. So I have my exterior top here. I'm gonna take my exterior bottom and lay it right side down, lining up my side and bottom edges. And I'm just going to clip that. And then just as a reminder, we have not stitched our straps down. So don't do that yet. I know that you want to. It seems like the logical next step, but I promise it makes things harder if you do that before adding the exterior pocket. But okay, so we have the exterior bottom sandwich right side together. Got the straps in between. So we are going to take our pocket top and lay it on top of the bottom. So it's the smaller of the 2. We're gonna overlap it by about 1/2 inch and we're gonna center it on our straps here. Just gonna slide this up about 1/2 inch. And then I'm just gonna slide these clips over. That's a little more than 1/2. There we go. And slide these clips over. Clip that, and now we're going to flip the whole panel. So now the exterior top is showing, and we're going to take our exterior pocket bottom and lay it right sides together and do the same thing. Center it on your straps about 1/2 inch above the raw edge. So it looks like exterior top, or it's the pocket bottom, exterior top, the strap, the exterior bottom, pocket top. It's confusing, I know, but stick with me. Okay, so now we're going to go to the machine and we're going to stitch this, and I will show you how to complete this panel. Okay, so I have my exterior top face up, well, not face up, wrong side up, but up top so that I could see it. And so I have my stitch length out of 4. And I'm going to sew. And I can feel where my straps are under here. So when I start to climb up onto my strap, I'm going to add some stay stitches. And you want to be really careful. So when you get to the inside of your strap, you're going to switch to a basting stitch. And then you're going to keep stitching. And now you can feel where your where your cork stops or your main textile stops. And so you're gonna just use your finger and follow along to keep your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across. And then once you reach the other inside of your strap, when you pop back up on it, you want to switch back to your original stitch length, add some stay stitches, and then continue stitching across the panel. And so the tricky part is now what we have to do is we have to butterfly this stitch or the seam line open. Clemmy almost got me. We have to butterfly this open with this open. So all of this under here. But you want to keep your strap end facing toward the bottom. So I'm just going to finger press this really well. I'm just going to put it under here because I don't have anywhere else to go. So I'm going to finger press in both directions. When you get to the pocket, you're going to flip it up and keep your strap toward the bottom. And you're going to, sorry, the dogs are playing if you hear them. But just finger press all the way across. And then carefully, we're going to top stitch both of those seams down. Pulled my thread out. Hey guys, can't you go somewhere else? They've been sleeping all day because it's been raining. So now they're like raring to go. What did I just do? Okay. Okay, so carefully I'm gonna flip this panel back over so that I can top stitch from the right side. I'm just gonna hold the seams butterflied open and I'm gonna start stitching about 1/8 of an inch from my seam line. Clemmy, drop it, enough. And so carefully, as I'm sewing, I'm gonna lift underneath. I'm gonna lift the bottom and use my left hand to make sure that my stitch, or that my seam line is still butterflied as I'm sewing. And it just gets really tricky when you get to the strap. So you just want to go nice and slow, making sure that you're butterflied the whole way. And then I like to add some more stay stitches once I get onto my strap, because that will be a stress point whenever this pocket is opened and when it's opened and being used. So pivot, and I'm going to continue sewing across the exterior bottom with that butterfly seam. And you want to make sure that you're keeping a scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance because you want to catch the folded seam in the back. Trim up these threads. And this is what it should look like. So you should have a nice top stitched edge on the inside here. And what that does is it just creates a nice fold when it's inside the pocket. And so to finish this pocket off, we're going to take the pocket bottom, which is up top, and fold it down and align it with the bottom edge here. I'm just going to throw a clip on there so that it stays in place. And then we'll flip the whole panel back to right side up. And now we're going to stitch our pocket closed. And the way I'm going to do that is, let me just show you. So you can see where the strap is. So I'm just going to start sewing and kind of angle in near the strap, come down, pivot, and then sew that little L. Leave a birthing hole, come all the way over here, and then keep sewing up and over. And so the way that I like to do that is just pull the exterior bottom up and sew until you get right to the strap. You could, again, you could just feel it. Leave a nice big birthing hole. It's gonna help later. And now that panel, or the pocket itself, is completed. So now the last step that we need to do to complete the entire panel is stitch up and across and back down. So I only left a 1/2 inch in between the first mark and the second mark being the one where we folded to create the rolled edge. If you find that you can't get your presser foot up that far to that fold, or to that first mark, if you want to, you can lower it. It's totally up to you. I like to get it as close to this rolled edge seam as possible. Excuse me. But you do what your machine can handle. Oh, goodness. Ooh, sorry, I had to take a break. I had a coughing fit there. So I have found that, goodness, my machine likes to skip stitches up here in these corners just because there's so much pressure here. So be sure to turn your hand wheel to ensure that the bobbin thread is caught so that you don't skip any stitches there. Now we're just going to repeat that for this other side. Okay. So now this panel is complete. While I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and stitch this crossbody strap. And I'm going to stitch it down the one open edge, the folded edges, and then pivot and sew back up the other side. All right, so I am gonna do the 2 stitch lines down the center just because I do think it looks nice. And I like to line the edge of my strap up on my 1/4 inch line because my first stitches are 1/8. And then I line the edge up on the 1/4 inch line, or you can even do it on the one that says 10. assuming that's centimeters, 10 centimeters. That's the guideline that I follow. I have a feeling I'm going to run out of my bobbin thread soon. Didn't. So now this is what it looks like. It's got the 4 lines. I just think it looks cool. That's why I do that. So this is what the panel looks like completed. And then again, both of mine have the pockets because I'm good like that. But so the next step would be to unpick this seam. And the way that I like to do that is I just kind of fold and roll the seam to expose the stitches down in there. And then very, very carefully, you're gonna start unpicking. And you're only gonna unpick to the inside of the straps here. And if you don't know this, if you put this side down into the seam, the ball, you're gonna slide it right across. And then you don't have to worry about the sharp edge catching your cotton. And then there's your pocket. The annoying part is you just have to go back and pick these threads out. So obviously, because I did both of them the same way, I need to unpick this side too, and then I'll just like walk you through how to do the panel. Sorry, that was I was concentrating really hard there. Stop talking. Basically, to do the panel without the pocket, you're just going to follow the same directions. You're just not going to baste in between your straps. And then you just stitch and butterfly the seam down, and that's it. Compared to adding the pocket and then having to finish it all off, it goes much quicker, and it's just a lot easier to do. But essentially what you would do is just imagine with me that this is not sewn together and this is not here. But you're going to lay, and remember, this is not going to be stitched down yet. So you're going to have your exterior top with your glued or taped straps, not stitched, just taped or glued. And then you're going to lay your exterior bottom on it, right sides together, and line up your side and bottom edge. And then you're going to stitch at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you're going to butterfly your seam open just like that. And it's going to look the same as this, except that it's not going to be a pocket here. And so you're not going to have to change your stitch length or do anything like that while sewing. So yeah, this tedious part of having to pull all these guys out. But it leaves such a nice opening. Your pocket it's almost a hidden pocket. Unless the bag is kind of pooched when it's sitting up, you don't even know that this pocket is there, which is one of the many reasons I love this tote. I'm going to add my label before I forget, because I totally will do that. And then we are very close to being done with the exterior. Let's see. So I'm going to put mine 1.5 inches up, centered in between my straps here. 7, something like that. So that's where I'm going to put mine. And I'm just going to pop to the machine and sew that down really quick. You guys have seen that a billion times. But before I do that, I'm going to add one more layer of base coat to these. I've got a, I'm going to trim this down. I've got a sharp piece there. And something that I noticed that I thought I would point out. So when I was applying the edge coat and I had it clipped, it was clipped like this. And so when it was drying, the edge coat was sinking towards the bottom and it created this big bubble here. And so when I get that, I just trim it down with scissors. So that way it's not a big obvious bubble when it's all done and there's color on it. Okay, so let's add one more layer of base coat, and then once that dries, I'll be able to add edge coat to it, and then it'll be ready. After we complete the lining in the next video, these will be ready to be attached. I talked about it whenever we did the Taisteal Sewalong. What I look for with my edge coat, the way that I know that it's ready to have color applied, is you want this edge to be a nice milky opaque white. You don't want to be able to see the backing at all. And I have found that with 3 layers of base coat, I can get away generally with 1 layer of color. But yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the machine and stitch this down real quick, and then we will complete the exterior. We are nearing the end of video 2. All that we have left to do now is attach our exteriors together. The things that I'm going to look for are, I want my side seams to match up, so that's usually where I start clipping. I'll do that on both sides. And it can be a little bit wonky because these straps under here doesn't want to lay nicely, but do what you can. And then I'm going to come down. I'm just going to follow how it wants to lay naturally. I'm not going to force it to meet up. Because if you do that, then you'll end up with like a lopsided bag, or a bag that wants to sit sideways or something like that. So I just kind of let it lay how it naturally wants to lay. And then we need to cut our boxes out of the bottom. So the measurement is in the pattern. And I'm just going to cut both out. And unless one of the pieces, the bottom pieces, is way skewed, I'm just going to measure it like normal. I'm not going to have to change the measurement unless, you know, it would have to be really, really far off for me to have to amend this box size. Something else I wanted to point out is, because I did accidentally do 2 exterior slip pockets, I only left one of them open for turning, and I went ahead and closed that one up. Okay, so the last step here is we're going to start stitching. We're going to go down the right side, stop down here with our needle still in, and then we're going to pull the bottom, stitch, and pull. If you've ever made any of my other patterns or saw or have seen me make any of them, then you know this technique, but it helps with the box bottoms with the corners to meet up nice. We have Sal over here. He's He was just waiting for me to get up out of the chair. We've been sharing my sewing chair for years now. So he's used to me just kind of moving him around. So I like to add a lot of stay stitches here. And then I like to back tack again over this seam. And I don't know if you noticed, but I used the weight of my arm to keep everything going in the direction that I want it to go in, so that way it doesn't shift and move around on me. Because when you have such a large bag, it can get heavy and want to pull, but so you can utilize the weight of your arm to steer. Okay, so my needle is still in the cork, and now I'm just going to carefully pull up and continue sewing. Again. Okay, this shifted just a touch, so I am gonna manipulate that. There we go. And then while I'm over here, I'm gonna box my bottom edges. So just stick your fingers there, and then you'll see that your seams line up nicely. And then I like to lay one of the seams going this way and the other going this way, just so that you can slide it and you'll feel them butt up against each other. And then that'll create a perfect boxed edge, and it won't be all cattywampus. And then just stitch across that, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Sorry if you can't see. And now we're going to put our hand on this side and do the same thing, box that bottom. And I like to make sure to keep whichever side I laid the bottom seam on this end, I'm going to do the same over here so it's not twisted inside the bag. Okay, and we'll go back over to the other side and flip this bad boy right side out. Before I flip, I am going to trim my seams down, just so that way when the lining is inside, it lays nicely and it's not being pushed by this big seam. I do like to leave about 1 inch at the top though, because it makes it easier to butterfly open instead of trying to butterfly a 1/8 seam. Okay. Oh, I didn't trim this pocket down, so I'm just going to trim at least along the bottom here, because then whenever we flip at the end, it allows it to lay nicer and not have a bunch of bulk. Okay. And now for the reveal. I just realized I forgot to put the rivets on my straps, which luckily this bag is big enough that it won't be an issue to do it now. But usually I would have done that a little bit earlier. But this is what it looks like. It's so pretty. So yeah, I think to complete the look and to just make it more structurally sound, I'm going to put at least one, so I can show you the right way, one rivet up here and one rivet down here. And that is why we leave the 1/2 inch overhang. You can see where that strap ends there, but that's why. So if you want to rivet it, it has something to rivet into that's nice and uniform in size or thickness. But also, well, yeah, that's it. That's why I did that. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab my template, tops and bobbins. Is where I got that, before you ask. And then I'm just gonna do one rivet on both the top and the bottom. So I'm just gonna mark all of them first, and then I'll punch my holes. This is always the fun part. You can use the hand rivet cut, oh, what is it called? Oh, the leather punch, the handheld one. I just don't have a small cutting mat to put down inside the bag to use that one. But had I done this, excuse me, goodness, this, but I think I have allergies this year or something. My throat is so dry and scratchy. But anyways, had I done this prior to attaching the two panels, I would have used the hand die punch thingy, because it just makes it easier, and then you don't have to bend your cork up like this. But if you know me, then you know that my sewing videos tend to be just a touch chaotic. Gotta stay on brand, you know? Okay. All right, there we go. Grab our rivets. This is another reason why I designed the pocket to be so wide, is so that when you rivet it, it catches the pocket as well. And it just adds another layer of protection that it's not going to shift or move around with a lot of use. All right. So we have one completed exterior Taisteal. All right, we made it. Day 2 is complete. I hope that you did not run into the same issues that I did, and I hope that you were able to seamlessly get through sewing the exterior pocket. That can be the trickiest part of this bag. But with practice, which I obviously don't do very often, it's not hard to do. So yeah, I hope that your exterior came together easily for you. Be sure to leave a comment, let me know how it's going, where you're at in the sew along, and if you had any issues, and I will be sure to answer those questions as much as possible. Because I can't do a live until the very end of the month, until after the bag is completed. If you have any pertinent questions to where you're at now, be sure to leave them in the comments and I will answer them to keep you up to date and moving along the same sewing trajectory that the rest of us are at. So yeah, see you next week.